First Baptist Church of Jasper, Georgia. It's Wednesday night, and I'm glad that you are joining me. And as you can tell, that we're not in my office. We are in our beautiful old chapel that was built in 1931. I'm going to step out of the picture and let you get a little bit better picture of it. And so, it doesn't look like what it was built. It doesn't look like it was built in 1931. Some renovations have been made. There's no longer pews. There's chairs. But decided, since we are in the second week of First Baptist Church through the years, that I came to a part of the building that happened we're getting into the 20th century. So tonight we're going to be talking about the 1900s about up to the 1950s. So in 1900 and 1903, Pastor G.A. Bartlett established prayer meeting. So they had service they had service on Sundays, but this was something extra that happened in the life of the church here, where people in the community were able to gather. 1911, there was a remodeling of the building that was first here on this property. The one-room framed church was remodeled. There was a bell tower that was put on it. And in 1911, there was also a ladies' aid missionary society. So I can imagine it's probably similar to our Lamplighters group, the Women on Missions group that talks about the missions that are going on around the world. 1922, their homecoming was set up here to be the second Sunday in June. So they invited members from all over town, all over, in different churches, invited them to come. And guess what happened? They invited several preachers, and two of the preachers forgot to show up. They just didn't show up. So I can imagine that there were probably some hurt feelings, but, with homecoming, there was lots of good food. So probably after, there were probably feelings were hurt, but after they got to the meal and everybody had that wonderful home cooking that comes with being in First Baptist Church, they probably got over the fact that two preachers forgot to come for homecoming. So, 1923, Sunday school, the attendance was going around 100, which was big. That's a lot for a church. 1929, right before the Great Depression, prayer meeting was reestablished. So that meant that prayer meeting kind of came in and out of the life of the church based on the availability of a preacher, someone to lead prayer meeting. 1930s, the 1930s. Now you got to think about it. This was a time in the life of our country of the Great Depression. So a very hard time, for people all over the United States. 1931 comes along, and there was a building. There was talk of building, and it started the building of this area right here. So the chapel, a 3-story brick, state-of-the-art building, was built right here where we are now. So it had a kitchen, a pastor's study, had some classrooms right out behind as you go out the doors here, and the old choir room is back there. And there's, the area below. Colonel Sam Tate wanted marble frames around the outside as you come in. You'll still notice those there. While it was being built, the old one-framed church was place to put supplies. The church met and had services at the school. The building loan, the building cost $8,000 to build. And this was a state-of-the-art building, like I said, for this area, just a state-of-the-art. WMU bought the pews, And by July, they moved in and began to worship and do church here in this building and in the classrooms, in the kitchen, making lots of good meals, I bet. I know they had to. 1932, Pastor Gaddis, who was the pastor during the construction at the end of the 20s and into the 30s, he left. Jasper Baptist Church, as it was called then, there was preaching that happened 2 Sundays a month. Meaning that some of the preachers, they often pastored different churches. So First Baptist might meet for Sunday school every Sunday, but there would be a minister only 2 times a week. And that fluctuated throughout the life of the church. Sometimes they had 4 Sundays, sometimes it was 2. 1933, October 20th was the first formal wedding in this building. Patsy Lindsay was married to a Marl Johnson. But there was another wedding that took place right before that. But it didn't happen in this actual room. It happened in the pastor's study where a lady named Dixie Stegall married a Mr. Davis. 1938, a pastor, Reverend A.W. Bussey, moved to Jasper. And he was not just a preacher, but he was a teacher, because he set up the Bible Institute for Preachers. And that institute, that teaching facility of this place not only became a place of worship, it became a place of growing in faith, but also became an educational center where they fed and taught and housed preachers to come in for 12 years. So now, but in the same time, in 1938, when he came here, when they had revival, controversy happened. Controversy. At revival, Reverend Bussey moved the altar, the mourner's bench, in a way that the Jasper Baptist Association was not in agreement with. So First Baptist Church got kicked out of the Jasper Baptist Association. 1942, this was a time, you think this was during World War II, they dropped the name Baptist Church of Christ, because it was very common back then for all Baptist churches to have the terminology Baptist Church of Christ, and they dropped it. 1945, right after World War II had ended, there was talk within the congregation of building a home for the pastor and the pastor's family. So they began to swap land with a local landowner, a Mrs. Bradley, to get land to build a home right out here. If you're facing the chapel, then it would be on your left right now. But if you're sitting like this, it's on my right. So 1947, the construction of a 6-room brick house was for the pastor and the family was built. It took a loan of $3,000 to build it, and by that spring, Reverend Bussey and his wife moved in to that building. So, in that 50 years of time, lots happened within the life of this church. I mean, there was lots of, lots of people that came in and out of these doors. There were pastors that came and went there, but lots happened building-wise. You had a tear down of the first building that was built here, the one-room framed house, and then you had this huge, beautiful building, and then a pastorium. So lots has happened in like I said, lots happened in the life of this church. Fascinating stuff. Thanks to Reverend Walker for, just learning about through his book what took place here in the life of First Baptist Church. So thanks for joining me. I hope you can join me next week as we kind of close out, as we talk about the next few years, and we talk about buildings, people who've come and go, interesting things that have happened in the life of the church. So it's exciting to be a part of a church that one knows its history and celebrates it, because the only way to know where you're going, you got to know where you came from. So again, thanks for joining me, and hope to see you next week on Wednesday night. All righty, and we'll meet somewhere else besides my office. Stay tuned, and you'll figure it out.